Survivorship bias. Let's assume that you want to become a Hokage at Hidden Leaf Village, but instead of looking at the actual stats, only see the glorified stories of those people who successfully became the Hokage. Plus, you don't get to hear any stories from the other people who didn't make it. So you feel like you can make it too and overestimate your own chances of success, which might lead to a failure later on. So always make sure to look at the actual chances of succeeding first in order to counter this bias. The swimmer's body illusion. This is when you confuse the selection factors with results. You feel like you can become an amazing swimmer by going to the Iwatobi swim club, but you get rejected. Why? Because the club only selects those people with the right physique for it, like Haruka and Nase. This also applies to other areas, for example, top universities like Harvard, Yale, the IITs. So make sure to look at the selection criteria first and then the results. Sunk cost fallacy. Let us say that you're in a relationship with Makima for almost a year, and one day you realize that she might just turn you into a dog. Being the irrational idiot that you are, you of course continue your toxic relationship with her anyway, just because you've already spent so much time and energy into it. Plus you think it's worth it being her dog. Unpopular opinion, it's not. Instead, ignore the sunk costs and break up with her this instant. Let that sink in. Confirmation bias. Imagine that you believe in Marin Kitagawa's supremacy and look for only those facts which confirm your beliefs, while completely ignoring the fact that Speedwagon is the best and the only goddamn waifu of all time. So don't. Always look for contradicting info and not just the one that confirms. And remember, it takes a real man to be the best girl. Grant money the foe. Authority bias. Death is certain in real life, but it's certain and a lot more faster in Attack on Titan. However, being the irrational soldier that you are, you follow Irwin's speech and basically head towards suicide. This is what happens when you follow the authority blindly without using your own brain. So don't do that. The contrast effect. Basically it happens when you compare things or even people based on what they are next to instead of their actual value. For example, when you think of an absolute baddie like Death as mid just because she's next to Speedwagon. So focus on the absolute value and not the relative value. Availability bias. For example, just because you saw Pikachu's electric attacks actually affecting ground types in Pokemon anime and remember it very well, you assume that the same thing will work in the video games. So you try it out and get your ass kicked. So once again, don't make a mental picture of the world or how certain things are based on only those examples which enter your mind, but do it based on actual data. Hindsight bias. For example, when your homeboy finally gets a girlfriend, you say something like, I always knew that you had it in you, and think that you predicted the whole thing like Light Yagami, even though you actually had no hope for him and cracked gay jokes on him and whatnot. So don't act like an idiot. You're not Light, you're not Ayanokoji, you're not Lelouch, you're not Aizen. You're just a normal stupid guy. Remember that whenever the hindsight bias kicks in. Outcome bias. This happens when you evaluate the decision based on its result rather than the quality of the decision process. Let's say they saw Walt winning in the final match between him and Shukura and I in the World Championship Finals and think to yourself that this is because Walt made much better decisions in the match. Not the case, even Shu was equally skilled. It's just that Walt had plot armor and that's why he won. So don't evaluate a decision based on the result, but also focus on the process and see if any external factor which was out of control also influenced this result. The paradox of choice. More choices are supposed to make you feel happier, but they don't. Instead, they make it harder for you to decide what to choose and give you a lower level of satisfaction when you actually make the choice. And then you feel like taking everything like Android 18 in that one episode, but you know you can't. Solution is trust your instinct whenever you feel like all of them are equally good, or use some other factors to narrow it down. Endowment effect. This one's gonna be a terrible example. Now Fumi loves his slaves, so he values them more than the price that he paid for them. This is why if you wanna buy Raphtalia from him, then you won't be able to if you aren't ready to pay a much higher price for her just because he owns her and values her so much. We do the same, except with other things that we can buy, like actual non-living things. Slavery is bad. Slavery is inefficient. Adam Smith said it, not me. Groupthink. Yu Yuigahama loves maintaining harmony in her friends group, so she always suppresses her dissenting opinions in order to avoid conflict. But she needs to realize that sometimes she needs to be like freaking Hikigaya Hachiman in season 1 and speak her mind out, even if she ends up being alone and hated by most of her classmates like he did. Loss aversion. Shoya Ishida tries his best to stay detached from people. Why? Because he knows that having the mental loss that he did due to his overwhelming guilt, shame, and other feelings, again, is gonna be really painful. Not only that, but it's twice as powerful as the joy of getting new friends and trying to move on, which is why he tries not to take that risk. Social loafing. Ayana Koji Kiyotaka is a complete beast when he's alone, but he subconsciously puts less effort whenever he's in a group. Since others will also do the work and his contribution is less visible, he does not perform at his absolute best level. The halo effect. Alright, Time to roast the Makima Sims again. Denji looks at how beautiful and hot Makima is and straight up assumes that she's also genuinely kind, loyal, has good moral values, and is overall a good person. And then he sees this happening right in front of him. Ouch. So don't be a sim. Never judge a book by its cover, cause it might just have the capacity to kill you on the inside. The horn effect. Time for a very niche reference. Seiichiro Kitano has a really scary face, so people think that he's a delinquent or something. But no, he's actually a really pure, kind and nice guy on the inside. So yeah, once again, never judge a book by its cover. Social proof. In other words, all the bullies / gossipers / rumor spreaders in anime and even real life. They feel like what they're doing is right just because many other people are doing it, which creates this chain reaction and makes more people bully, gossip about others, or ignore a person even though it's wrong. But hey, everyone else is doing it. It must be right. That's what these motherfuckers think. Don't be one of them. Analyze the situation rationally and figure out if doing it is actually right. Cognitive dissonance. Sanji thinks of himself as a healthy person, but then he smokes a lot. So the contradiction between his perception of himself and his behavior makes him uncomfortable, and instead of fixing himself, he just lies to himself by saying stuff like, at least I don't smoke as much as smoker, so it can't be that bad for my health. But the point is, it's not. Stop smoking. It's a harder but much better way of being in line with your perceptions of yourself. Domain specificity. Senku is a genius when it comes to science and understanding anything related to it. But is he able to use the same skills and depth when understanding women? Nah, not really. So yeah, it's basically when you aren't able to transfer insights from one area of life to another. The only solution here? Practice. Regression to the mean. Okay, this one's gonna be a huge manga spoiler. Nagi performs extremely well against Bastard Munchen in a match. However, he does not perform that well in the next one. He did not fall off or anything, he just performed exceptionally well in the previous match and came back to his average performance in the current one. Or as Ego would say, his goals in the previous match are non-reproducible. This can also happen after exceptionally bad performances as well, so don't think that you fell off or did really well compared to before. It's just a regression back to your average performance. And that's it for this video. Let me know in the comments if you want me to make a part 2. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.